a tough day last night in the Middle East. We lost 3 brave souls in an attack on one of our bases.
Yes.
And I'd ask you for a moment of silence for all 3 of those fallen soldiers.
Jeez.
And we shall respond.
Let's take a look at the political ramifications of all of this with Joe Siracusa. He's a professor of political history and diplomacy at Curtin University and joins us from Perth, Australia. Prof, it's always good to have you on the News Hour. So what do you think Biden's response will be here? He's certainly under a lot of pressure.
Good morning. Well, he certainly is. I mean, there'd be a lot of people in Washington who are frankly war hawks. They want to settle scores with Iran. I mean, this idea of settling scores with Iran goes all the way back to the Iranian Revolution of '79. I mean, 1979. Americans wanted to hit Iran with the kitchen sink, and other Americans wanted to use diplomacy. But you know, this president, who was around at that time, by the way, knows that if you use too much force, then you're in another forever war. I mean, if you got in a war with Iran and won, I mean, who's going to stay there for the next 20 years? So the United States could beat up Iran a lot, could sink its ships, it could degrade its command and control. But I think we're going to have more than the usual tit for tat, or, you know, this for that alike, because deterrence has clearly failed. Iran does what it wants to do. Americans clearly see a connection between Iran and its backers, or its clients in different places in Syria and Iraq and others. But the big news today is that Americans woke up, found 3 Americans were dead, 25 seriously wounded, and there are 2,800 Americans who are in Jordan helping the Kingdom of Jordan with its terrorism. I mean, most Americans wouldn't have a clue before today that so many Americans are over there. So some of them would say, well, you know, if you're in the line of fire, that's not much you can do about it. But the thing is that Biden has got some choices here. He could do a little bit, or he could do a lot. And he's under enormous pressure to do a lot more.
Yeah, he certainly is. And he's under pressure from some Republican senators who have said that the U.S. now has to call for strikes on Iran. But how do you think this is also going to affect the election campaign, not just for Biden, who's currently on the election trail, but as well for Donald Trump?
Well, Donald Trump says he could have avoided the whole thing, which I doubt, as a matter of fact, that these are things that are happening beyond their control. But you're quite right. What's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Jordan and other places has now been totally politicized by the race to the White House in November 2024, in a couple months. So Americans have been looking very closely at what they're saying that they would do. Trump would say, well, you know, under my watch, this wouldn't have happened. And, you know, they better look out the next time. The thing is that I think with America's enormous strength, that it has to show some kind of restraint here. I mean, the key to winding down the problem in the Middle East is to get the Gaza war off the books. That is, to get some kind of ceasefire, a diplomatic solution, some kind of solution. And so, you know, the key is not to increase the regional prospect of a war, but to decrease the war that's going on in Gaza. So America's, you know, caught between a rock and a hard place here. If it goes in hard, the war in the Middle East expands. And if it does the right thing and tries to bring the war in Gaza under control, it will bring Tehran under control, because at the end of the day, this war in Gaza is the key to everything.
It will be certainly interesting to see what the U.S. administration does. Professor Joe Siracusa in Perth, Australia, thank you.
Thank you.